What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and as you can see by his backdrop right there, he is in the Smith Center following North Carolina's 100-92 victory over 10th-ranked Tennessee on that very court and very arena right behind AJ, and a lot of stuff to talk about. Really positive performance from the Tar Heels tonight, particularly in that first half. But I'm going to run through some stats real quick, AJ, and then we'll dive into the first thing. RJ Davis, 27 points, led the way for the Tar Heels. Big night from him. Armando Bacot, 22 points, 11 boards. Harrison Ingram, 20.6 rebounds. And Cormac Ryan pitch in with 15 points off the bench. So, again, a really positive win for North Carolina, but a lot to discuss from it because it was almost a tale of two halves in different ways. But let's start with the first half. Carolina started really fast, punched Tennessee in the mouth, 60-plus points in the first half. I mean, I tweeted out it's one of the best first-half performances or just half performances I've seen from the Carolina team in quite some time, and it was refreshing to see. I know a lot of Carolina fans were loving it. So what was it like being in the arena, AJ, because Carolina looked pretty dang good there in that first half?
Yeah, defensively, the statistics aren't going to look good for this team, and there were a lot of things to fix. I actually think it was defensively the first couple possessions that Tennessee had, Carolina was in their grill, and I think that's where they punched. Carolina sent the message to Tennessee that we're going to fight with you. We're okay with that. Because coming into this, the whole thing was Tennessee is maybe the most physical team in the country, most physical team Carolina will play, the number one adjusted defensive efficiency nationally. Rick Barnes likes to muck it up. They're a lunch pail crew, a hard hat crew, all that kind of stuff. And the Tar Heels wanted to show that they have that too. And they knocked Tennessee off kilter right out of the gate, and it took the Vols a long time to really find themselves overall. Now, they did score. Dalton Connect was amazing for them tonight. Three straight games, by the way, an opposing player scored 30-plus points against Carolina.
Sounds about right.
And Carolina's 2-1 in those games, and the one they lost was overtime. So against a good Villanova team. So I really think that that's kind of the punch, and then the residual effect of that punch showed itself on the offensive end. The spacing, the movement, the recognition, the catch and shoot threes. The first 11 threes were catch and shoot threes. We've talked about that a lot. I did drop about it before the season started. I've written about it. I kept telling people there's going to be more of those. Catch and shoot three is a rhythm shot. It's what these guys do in drills constantly. It's a better shot for them than off the dribble. In fact, the first off the dribble shot they attempted was the three that RJ banked in the first half, put them up about 14 or so. So when they're doing that stuff, and when they're playing like they have eyes in the back of their heads, and when they're playing like when you run dummy offense, you see guys go to this spot, and that's all the spots are always filled. They're always occupied, but there's always movement. That's what they were doing. I mean, it was a clinic offensively. They got Armando involved getting inside. Armando was efficient tonight. Jonas Adu is going to play in the NBA. And he's got an NBA body. He's getting better. I thought he played really well. He's a kid that Carolina looked at when Hubert got the job a few years ago, ended up going to Tennessee. And I thought Armando played really well. Armando's hip game, his body, his hip game was fantastic tonight. Carolina had a decided rebound advantage for most of the game. Ended up, I think, +3, which is very doable against Tennessee. And the Tar Heels were able to convert. They were getting fast break points. They were getting points off of offensive rebounds. They were getting points off of Tennessee turnovers. At one point, I think they had like a 16-2 advantage in points off turnovers. Carolina's bench came in and scored. They got great production in the first half from Trimble and from Jalen Washington. They really played well. And, you know, that first half was Roy stuff. That was when Roy had a really good team that was a contender to snip the nets. That's the kind of stuff they did every once in a while against really good teams. This is the best team Carolina's had since 2019. There's no other way around it. It's absolute. Now, doesn't have a tremendous amount of competition, to be perfectly honest. Those other teams were flawed. I'm sure this team has some flaws, and we'll see those flaws come out here in the next month or so. But this was a fantastic win, a fantastic performance. The threes that they got, Harrison Ingram getting them going right away. I mean, he's got such a beautiful release on the catch and shoot. He had that steal with the left-hand slam. That's 2 straight games. He's got the old man left-hand slam now. You go back and look at old NBA highlights in the 80s, and you'll see guys with the one-hand slam, nothing, those things stylish, just one-hand slam, left-handed slam, boom, it's done. Harrison's got that in his game. So I don't see how, even though Tennessee shot like 60% or something close to it in the first half, I don't see how a Carolina fan could be upset at all with what they saw from this team in the first half. It's a very good team at times, and you saw that tonight.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. They were fantastic, particularly in that first half. And we'll talk about the second half here in a second. I want to stay on the offense for the second thing a little bit. I know you hit on it a little bit there, but I want to stay on it for a little bit longer because, again, like you mentioned and talked about there, the offensive flow was so great in the first half. That kind of changed a little bit in the second half. I know from being in the arena, AJ, what do you think kind of changed, particularly in the second half when Tennessee was able to come back into this game?
Well, Carolina missed some shots. They missed 9 out of 10 during the same stretch that Tennessee hit 11 of 14. Mm-hmm. And that coincided immediately when Carolina went up 24. They go up 71-47 on a 3 by Ryan. Carolina hit their first 4 shots the second half. Oh, 71-47. Then the Tar Heels couldn't hit.
Yeah.
And when they started missing, they went really heavy into running set plays, and Tennessee was stuffing a lot of that out. And the Volunteers are scoring the other end. They got a lot of really good players. They showed why they're a top 10 team. They are. They're 4-3 now, but they're going to be a factor in the SEC. They're going to be a factor in March for sure. Ziegler's still not 100% healthy. You can't convince me of that. Connect gives them a baller that maybe – that they don't. I mean, they always have really good players, but he's like a scoring machine out there. I mentioned they've got some really nice players, and they played really well in that stretch, and they kept pushing it offensively. I thought Carolina got a little sloppy with some of their switching and rotations defensively. Tennessee got some good looks. Hubert's going to have plenty of stuff to show them. That they could have done better. And if they'd done better, they win this thing by 30 points. But it's not realistic to beat Tennessee by 30 points. It's just not. They're too good. They're too well coached. They're too stubborn. They're too feisty. They're too mentally tough to get run out like that. And you saw that. So a Tennessee fan can take the second half and say, we've got all the fiber that we need. We just didn't play well. We didn't stop a team that was awesome offensively in the first half. I will say this about the Tar Heels in the second half. They actually fought off the Tennessee push. Tennessee cut it to 7 on a 28-11 run, and boom, 8-0 spurt by the Tar Heels. Then Tennessee cut it to 6 again, and I never got the impression that Tennessee was going to complete the deal there. I thought that they used a lot of reserve to get the game to that point, and when you look on the floor, and you got R.J. Davis and Elliot Cadeau out there, it's kind of hard to imagine Carolina giving a game away with mistakes. And if RJ's the guy going on the line, he's going to sink them. Elliott hit some big free throws down the stretch as well. So Carolina's a good free throw shooting team. Showed that tonight. And I thought that they had a couple of bad inbounds. They get at the corner, and Tennessee would kind of mess with them a little bit there. But I thought the Tar Heels handled that well enough. They won a game. They scored 100 points. Second time since 2006 someone scored 100 points against Tennessee.
Yeah.
They had 61. Tennessee did score 53 points in the second half.
Yeah, they did score a lot in the second. Yeah.
Man, you get a win over a top 10 team, and you look awesome doing it in many ways. And Hubert tomorrow can beat the crap out of him over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think
no doubt about it.
And the point there is, Jacob, that shows you how good this team could be.
Yep. I think we definitely saw that. I had some people kind of tweet me at halftime in particular, like, someone asked me, like, does this raise the kind of expectations or ceiling that we had with this team? And I didn't respond to it, but in my head it was like, I don't know if it necessarily raises the expectations of this team, because I think we've talked about how all off season so far this year, how good this team can be based on what we've seen and based on the roster makeup. So again, the first half performance,
talk to us next Tuesday night. Tuesday night.
We'll do a drop on that.
See how that goes.
We'll do a drop on that too, because we're gonna hit on that a little bit. But again,
plus next Tuesday's UConn in New York. So
yeah, man.
I think I will advise people to not make sweeping generalizations over single game performances in November.
Yeah.
What it does, it shows that this team can be really, really good, but they're far from even close to a finished product, and they have not fully synced. Yeah. So it's one game. Let's see how they handle FSU, and let's see what happens against UConn in Madison Square Garden, because that's going to be their toughest opponent.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing, AJ, real quickly, I know we've hit on the second half a little bit, and Tennessee kind of coming back into it, but Carolina able to kind of again, just win, not comfortably in the end. I know it went down to a lot of free throws and whatnot, a lot of fouling down the stretch. But again, Carolina ended up getting the 8-point win. But I think that second half performance, while it wasn't great, not nearly as good as the first half, Tennessee was able to come back in it a little bit. It showed maturity, and it showed how Carolina did respond. There were moments where you said where Tennessee was really pushing, where if Carolina misses a shot, Tennessee comes down and hits a three, all of a sudden it's a 2-possession game. And, who knows what happens at that point. So, again, really positive first half. Some second half things that, again, Hubert's going to pick at and they can improve on. You expect that from a team with so many new look guys playing a top 10 Tennessee team in Chapel Hill in a big game like this. But, again, I think there are still positive, like we've talked about today, to take away from that second half because this team, showed maturity and responded.
Well, they responded like a veteran club. Remember when they had, I think it was down to 2 against Radford in the second half and 3 against Lehigh. And I came on here in the 3 things afterward, and I talked about how the team didn't show any panic in those situations. People like to throw those games away like they don't mean anything. They mean a ton. They mean a ton because you begin your layering process in season with those games, regardless of how they go. And I remember asking Hubert after Lehigh, I was like, you guys didn't panic. There was no exchange in body language or facial expressions out there, something I saw a lot last year. Tonight was the same thing. So they've already been through that some. And I talked about the value in having those experiences being pushed and having to respond collectively, where it's not one guy has to respond, so everybody responds. And that's what they did tonight. They let them come back in. But if this was a back and forth game and they win 192 and the stats are kind of what they were, people aren't going to talk about them coming back in. They're not going to talk about a great first half either, just a great basketball game. And so I like the fact that they showed a ton of maturity. And even Elliott, I asked him after the game about the poise that Armando mentioned about Elliott. I said, where does that come from? Because he just turned 19 in September, and he's still getting comfortable talking to us. He's still feeling his way around and not expressing a whole lot. But what he said was, I played in really big games. I played in front of crowds before, and he did play internationally for his country in games that meant a ton in packed arenas, and he did really well in this situation. So he's a 19-year-old true freshman, and I know that he reclassed, but he should have ultimately been in this class anyway. But he's a guy that's seen a lot and done a lot, and now he's in practice every day with dudes that are a lot older than him, and he had to earn the respect. And Hubert just didn't hand him the keys from the get-go. I know a lot of people complained about it, but he had to earn his way. And I think he's earned his way now. Yeah. Eventually, you'll see Ryan back in the starting lineup, but Elliott, man, he had 0 points, 10 assists for a while. His only points were free throws, and I was thinking to myself, here's a guy who has not scored and he could dominate a game. I'll tell you, and this is important to hit on here. I know I'm talking about how the way they responded. Elliott was very important in how they responded. He responded like a veteran. The other guys are kind of infusing him with that. They're trickling down on him. But I'll tell you that the Elliott Cadeau factor here, which is absolute, and I asked Hubert about it after the game. Armando had 2 rim-to-rim runs for buckets. Elliott fed him both times. These were not totally pitch-ahead situations, but they were perfect passes. Here's a guy who's in his 5th year. Here's a guy who's in his 7th game. And there was a connection there with that rim run. He knows Armando's body. He knows Armando's speed. He knows where Armando needs the ball. And he got it to him, and Armando scored. I think the second one was an N1. I don't think Armando had 2 rim-to-rim buckets all season last year.
He might be right.
And he had 2 in the first half tonight. That's the Elliott Cadeau factor, and it's the Armando factor. Armando's slimmer, plus weight. He's quicker, a little bit bouncier. He's not going to flush in traffic with 2 guys on him like people want. It's just not going to happen. Hadn't done it yet. Don't stop expecting it. You ain't going to see it. But you saw big-time Armando tonight. You saw big-time Elliott Cadeau tonight. You saw a veteran team, kind of swat away the mess when the mess came late. They dealt with it just fine. They were not panicked in any way, shape, or form. Their maturity has already shown itself a lot through 7 games, and there's no reason to think that it's not going to continue.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly positive for a team like I said earlier, and like we've said so many times, that's got so many new faces, and that they're still trying to mesh together. So I think it's a big positive for Carolina tonight, and obviously a big win for the Tar Heels against 10th ranked Tennessee, 100-90 2 in the Smith Center. So AJ, that's a good time. Let's go ahead and get out of here, man. I know it's getting a little late. Interviews took a little bit of time, as they always do after a primetime matchup like this. So we'll go ahead and get the heck out of here so you can get to work. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your coverage from tonight's game, and obviously for all your Carolina football, basketball, and recruiting information as well. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell too. See y'all next time. Thanks.